Good morning. My name is Tamy Kim, and I'm the Director for Regulatory Affairs and Policy in the Oncology Center of Excellence. First, I'd like to go over what the OCE is, since this is a relatively new organization. The OCE was established in 2017 in response to the National Cancer Moonshot Initiative, and it is FDA's first and only intercenter institute authorized by the 21st Century Cures Act. The OCE interacts with FDA reviewers that are involved in the review of oncology products across the three centers of CBER, CDR, and CDRH, and we are responsible for the clinical review of applications that have expedited programs. So it is a busy center given the volume of oncology drug development globally, and FDA Oncology tends to employ expedited programs at a higher volume and creates programs for products falling under expedited programs as well. For historical context, I'm displaying some of FDA's most impactful programs and how they have been used in oncology. OCE conducted a review of accelerated approvals between 2010 and 2019 and found that 84% of FDA's accelerated approvals were for oncology indications. Greater than 80% of NME and efficacy supplement approvals were for priority review for oncology indications between 2015 and 2020. Lastly, 43% of breakthrough therapies are in oncology indications. Fast forward to 2017, when the Oncology Center for Excellence was established, the OCE also established real-time oncology review and the assessment aid in 2018, and then Project Orbis in 2019 to further streamline and expedite review of oncology products. Here is a chart of the OCE regulatory review programs for comparison. All of these programs are geared towards review efficiency, which may contribute to faster access of oncology drug to patients. RTOR, or the Real-Time Oncology Review, is a program that was established by the OCE in 2018. RTOR was developed to facilitate earlier review of applications addressing unmet need in oncology in an effort to facilitate safe and effective treatments to patients as early as possible. Eligibility criteria are drugs that are likely to demonstrate substantial improvements over available therapy or meeting criteria of an expedited program. Also, the application should contain studies with straightforward study design, and studies should have used endpoints that are easily interpretable. RTOR involves early iterative engagement with the applicant to discuss submission timelines for RTOR components, and it is different than rolling review, since in rolling review, modules are generally complete prior to submission. However, with RTOR, modules, let's say the clinical module, doesn't necessarily need to be complete in order for it to be submitted. Lastly, something that is new with RTOR that was updated earlier this year is that we are considering whether adequate dose optimization has been performed for RTOR applications. This is also a part of OCE's Project Optimus in encouraging dose optimization, since lack of dose optimization could slow review of marketing applications. So here's some data on our 2-year experience using RTOR. In this analysis, 20 applications were analyzed. The median time to approval from complete application submission, essentially when the PDUFA clock was initiated, to approval was 3.3 months. The median RTOR lead time for these applications was 5.7 weeks prior to the complete application submission. All of the RTOR applications received priority review, and 45% of these RTOR applications had breakthrough designation. Now turning to OCE's assessment aid, the OCE's assessment aid is a voluntary submission by the applicant to facilitate FDA's assessment of NDA and BLAs, including supplements. The assessment aid was based off of OCE's multidisciplinary review, which was a precursor to CDR's integrated assessment of marketing applications. The main objective of the assessment aid are to focus the FDA review on critical thinking and increase review efficiency and consistency, as well as decrease the review time spent on administrative tasks such as formatting. The assessment aid consists of data from the applicant's position, which are both completed by the applicant, and lastly, FDA's assessment, which is completed by FDA. The data section should be a concise presentation of the objective results. The applicant's position should be the applicant's interpretation of the data, and FDA's assessment will focus on whether FDA agrees with the applicant's position and any additional finding and analyses. The assessment aid is different than the multidisciplinary review because it creates a much more efficient and streamlined review process and reduces the administrative burden on FDA reviewers by permitting them to focus on key results and perform critical analyses. Importantly, the new format leads to a more dynamic review process where key regulatory questions can be answered more thoroughly and effectively. Here are some of the examples of OCE's assessment aids that are posted on Drugs at FDA so that you can see the differences between a more traditional FDA review and a somewhat newer assessment aid. For FDA Oncology global efforts, these started in 2004 with the EMA and expanded with monthly cluster meetings with Health Canada, Japan, Australia, and Switzerland. In 2019, the OCE launched Project Orbis, which is a collaborative review program with Australia, Brazil, Canada, Israel, Singapore, Switzerland, and the UK. Project Orbis provides a framework for concurrent submission and review of oncology products among international partners. All Project Orbis partners have a confidentiality agreement with each other with authorization letters to share information across Orbis countries. FDA serves as the primary coordinator to plan for concurrent or near-concurrent submissions across participating countries, using the assessment aid as a primary review document for FDA. As far as the review, multi-country teleconferences are held during the review to advise each other what is going on, but each country retains full independence in regulatory decision-making and labeling negotiations. Some of the key features of Project Orbis is that Orbis leverages FDA staffing and expertise with greater than 250 oncology staff, including 100 oncologists in 17 different oncology disease teams. Keep in mind, while the reviews are discussed, this is not a work-sharing initiative where countries divide up work. Rather, each country completes their own review and retains independent regulatory decision-making, but are able to share thoughts on the review through the Project Orbis process. Here are some of the Project Orbis stats. In year 1, we had 68 application submissions and 32 regulatory actions, and in year 2, we had 181 application submissions and 100 regulatory actions under Project Orbis. So the program is popular, and industry seems to be seeking to use this program. I'd also like to leave you with many of the other OCE Innovative regulatory review programs and projects which can be accessed on the OCE webpage. Lastly, I'd like to thank my colleagues in the OCE that have contributed to these programs and these slides.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Rhonda Hearns-Stewart, the Associate Director of the new Integrated Assessment of Marketing Applications in FDA's Office of New Drugs, Immediate Office within the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. The learning objectives of today's presentation are to describe the Integrated Assessment of Marketing Applications process and the Integrated Review Template, also called the IRT, to introduce the components of Integrated Assessment of Marketing Applications, also called IAMA, and to describe how scientific differences in viewpoint are documented within the Integrated Review Template. The Office of New Drugs underwent a modernization effort called the New Drugs Regulatory Program Modernization. The guideline principles included scientific leadership, integrated assessment, benefit risk monitoring, managing talent, operational excellence, and knowledge management. Today's focus is integrated assessment. We will continue to critically, collaboratively, and consistently assess whether information in submissions meets legal and regulatory requirements. This includes a new approach to document our assessments. We developed a more integrated, interdisciplinary approach to further collaboration and to decrease redundant information. Our assessments will remain rigorous and clinically relevant, but will also focus on key review issues while continuing to incorporate the patient perspective. Some may ask, why was there a need for a new integrated assessment of marketing applications? Well, based on feedback from both internal and external stakeholders, the agency identified the following challenges with the prior process and template. Discipline-specific reviews oftentimes led to redundant work and redundancy among documents. There was a desire for additional clarity on the rationale for the regulatory decision. Reviews were centered by discipline rather than interdisciplinary collaboration. Review staff wanted more time for critical thinking rather than spending a lot of time formatting documents and other tasks. And there was a need for better knowledge management as well. The new process and template were developed to address these challenges. Both the process and the template are interdisciplinary and issue-focused, focusing on key review issues. Goals for the integrated assessment of marketing applications are scientifically rigorous, discipline-specific assessments enhanced by interdisciplinary collaboration and discussion. An efficient, issue-focused assessment supported by new roles. Enhanced communication within the review team and with external stakeholders. Clear articulation and documentation of the basis for regulatory decisions. And increased support for review teams. Support includes clinical data scientists and medical editors, two new roles that I'll discuss later in this presentation. Ambassadors, on-demand resources, and trainings developed specifically for this new process and template. Let's take a look at the new components of this new process and template. There is a new issue-focused process that enables early identification of review issues and interdisciplinary collaboration. There is a new template to enable issue-based and interdisciplinary review documentation. We've also introduced two new roles, the clinical data scientist and medical editor. These roles shift some responsibility, therefore providing reviewers with more time for critical thinking. The new integrated review template is a three-part document. Part 1 is the executive summary, which provides the overall agency assessment, overview of major decisions and the rationale for those decisions. It also includes a summary of the regulatory action and the benefit risk framework. Part 2 is the interdisciplinary assessment. It is organized by key review issues that the review team thinks are pertinent to the decision-making process. It also houses discipline-specific sections of the review. Part 3 is the additional analyses and information section. This section houses material that supports the summary document and interdisciplinary assessment, work that may be used as a reference for future work, additional subject matter expert summaries, and discipline-specific additional analyses. The integrated assessment of marketing applications retains scientific disagreement and equal voice. The process has interdisciplinary, issue-focused meetings for the discussion of review issues. The Joint Assessment Meetings, also known as JAMs, are a forum for sharing and working towards resolving, where possible, differences in viewpoints. The integrated assessment retains scientific disagreement and equal voice, as I mentioned earlier, and documentation within the integrated review template includes an executive summary, and that executive summary describes any key scientific disagreement along with the resolution. It summarizes major differences of opinion, and it states the rationale for the resultant regulatory action and hyperlinks to sections of the document that describe these differences in greater detail. Part 2, the interdisciplinary assessment, describes differences in opinion regarding the key review issues and how those scientific disagreements were addressed. Part 3 of this document, the additional analyses and information section, includes separate reviews written by review staff who disagree with any part of the executive summary, the interdisciplinary assessment, and or the signatory authority decision. This slide here demonstrates the 21st century review for a 12-month review clock. You'll notice here, superimposed on this timeline are those issue-focused meetings that I mentioned earlier, the benefit risk scoping meeting and those joint assessment meetings, also known as JAMs. Those are your issue-focused meetings for this new process. And those are the only new types of meetings that we have included in the process. As I mentioned earlier, 2 new roles, the medical editor and the clinical data scientist, have been added, and 2 existing roles have been enhanced to allow team members more time to focus on critical thinking. The medical editor is now responsible for document management, including formatting and editing the integrated review document. The clinical data scientist works with the clinical reviewer and executes the safety data analysis plan. The RPM role has been expanded to include writing the regulatory history section of the integrated review document. And the Associate Director of Labeling, also known as the ADL, is responsible for writing the labeling overview section of the integrated review document. To date, 19 of 26 divisions have completed at least one integrated review, with a total of 60 completed integrated reviews through April 2022. We continue to collect internal and external feedback. In October 2020, we held an integrated assessment of marketing applications public workshop. We've also published 2 Federal Register notices for public comment on the integrated review template and completed integrated review documents. We continue to conduct internal surveys, focus groups, and listening sessions. Through these multiple forums, stakeholders voice the following initial concerns: the potential for groupthink, potential loss of detailed data and information, potential loss of insight into the regulatory process, and decreased navigability of review documents. To address concerns regarding the potential for groupthink, we worked with O&D policy to further define guidelines for documentation of scientific differences of opinion. The JAMS, Joint Assessment Meetings, are used for detailed discussion of different perspectives. If we align, that's fine, and if we can't align during those discussions, that's fine as well, because all perspectives are clearly documented within the integrated review template, in the executive summary, the interdisciplinary assessment, and or the additional analyses and information sections. To address concerns regarding the potential loss of detailed data and information, additional information is available in the discipline-specific appendices. It includes supportive documents, assessments, and analyses, documents, assessments, and analyses of import to key facts, data, or conclusions of the review. To address concerns regarding potential loss of insight into the regulatory process, the Integrated Review Template provides a standalone regulatory history section that summarizes the regulatory history of the drug product. And the Integrated Review is an interdisciplinary document and thereby provides further insight and clarity into the regulatory process through an interdisciplinary lens. To address concerns regarding decreased navigability of review documents, the Integrated Review retains hyperlinks and bookmarking functionality. Stakeholders also identified some benefits of the Integrated Review. The Integrated Review improves clarity of the review document. We continue to solicit and evaluate feedback from our internal stakeholders, and we intend to continue engaging external stakeholders to evaluate clarity of the Integrated Review document. Another benefit identified by internal and external stakeholders was improved usability of the Integrated Review document. Senior FDA leaders and subject matter experts continue to evaluate completed Integrated Review documents for usability. We intend to continue soliciting feedback regarding usability of Integrated Review documents from external stakeholders as well. The Integrated Review drives a more holistic assessment was another benefit identified by stakeholders. Senior FDA leaders and subject matter experts continue to evaluate completed Integrated Review documents for comprehensiveness. We also intend to continue soliciting and evaluating feedback regarding comprehensiveness from our external stakeholders as well. Senior leaders and subject matter experts perform internal quality assessments of completed integrated reviews. The objectives of these assessments are to perform independent evaluation for scientific rigor, comprehensiveness, and organization of completed integrated reviews, and to also identify areas for improvement. In the area of scientific rigor, we are evaluating the quality of the scientific assessment. Sample criteria include, but are not limited to, the following: identifies the key review issues leading to the regulatory decision, integrates information from all relevant disciplines, includes the rationale for acceptability of the trial design, and describes the approach to the safety review. In the area of comprehensiveness, sample criteria include reflects an integrated multidisciplinary approach, integrates information across the 3 sections, and includes reviews from subject matter experts. In the area of organization, the primary question is, to what extent is the review well organized? Sample criteria include whether hyperlinks work within the document, basis for key decisions, are they provided in the executive summary, and the use of standard tables and figures. This slide depicts results from 3 completed integrated reviews, the internal quality assessment results from those reviews. The scores were aggregated across 3 NDAs for scientific rigor, comprehensiveness, and organization. Overall, evaluators rated scientific rigor and comprehensiveness very high, 97% and 96% respectively, while organization was rated lower, but still well above average at 78%. We continue to perform these internal quality assessments and intend to expand similar assessments to include external stakeholders. As we close, I'd like to share with you some actual quotes from reviewers. The first one is from a CDTL. It's a good improvement of what we used to do. Used to be a lot of repetition. The template forces the team to come together into cohesive discussion of issues. The next quote is from a non-clinical reviewer. The integrated review has brought everything in one place and made the information available across different disciplines to come together to make one cohesive decision of the main issues and the scientific support for it. So I have here your challenge question number 1. Which of the following is an issue-focused meeting? Joint assessment meetings, JAMs, interdisciplinary kickoff meeting, C, finalization meeting, D, signatory review check-in. The answer is joint assessment meetings, A. Another type of issue-focused meeting would be your benefit risk scoping meeting as well. So in the new process for the integrated assessment of marketing applications, there are 2 issue-focused meetings types, the joint assessment meetings and the benefit risk scoping meetings. Challenge question number 2, where can you find discipline-specific sections in the integrated review template, also known as the IRT? A, executive summary, B, interdisciplinary assessment, C, benefit risk framework, D, JAM summary. The answer is you can find discipline-specific sections in the IRT within the interdisciplinary assessment, section 2 of the integrated review template. You can also find discipline-specific appendices within Part 3 of the integrated review template, the additional analyses and information section. In summary, the integrated assessment of marketing applications introduced new components to the review process to prioritize issue-focused and collaborative reviews. Integrated assessment of marketing application documents scientific differences in viewpoints. The FDA works to continually evaluate and improve the integrated assessment of marketing applications review process and integrated review template. Thank you very much for your time.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Commander Keith Olin. I serve as the Director for Process and Knowledge Management with the Office of Therapeutic, Biologics, and Biosimilars at the FDA. My presentation today will provide you with an overview of the BsUFA III enhancements starting in fiscal year 2023. Over the next 20 to 30 minutes, the presentation will focus on two main points. First, a brief overview of BsUFA and the reauthorization process and timelines associated with this process. And second, a highlight of some of the main BsUFA III agreements. Let's move on now to the BsUFA background and reauthorization process. Let's go over the user fee construct to provide you with a better understanding of how BsUFA came to be. Congress directed FDA to establish a user fee process for the review of biosimilar biological product applications. And as most people are aware, these user fees pay for services that will directly benefit the fee payers. Every 5 years, the FDA and industry discuss desired enhancements in terms of specific aspects of biosimilar biologic products. These discussions include new or enhanced processes and other resources that are required to implement and sustain these enhancements of the user fee program. Or discussions may include how user fees are collected, types of fees, and products covered. BsUFA I was first established in 2013, and BsUFA II 5 years later in 2018. BsUFA I referenced PDUFA fee amounts and included fees for products in the development phase. When you look at BsUFA II, you see that it builds upon what was established in BsUFA I. This includes an independent user fee structure based on program cost. It implemented a review program to promote the efficiency and effectiveness of the first review cycle and minimize the number of review cycles necessary for a biosimilar approval. Taking a step back, it is also important to understand the Biologics Price Competition and Innovation Act of 2009 directed FDA to develop recommendations for a user fee program for 351 applications for fiscal year 2013 through fiscal year 2017. The Food and Drug Administration Safety and Innovation Act of 2012 included the first authorization of BsUFA. When comparing BsUFA to other user fee programs such as PDUFA, you can still consider BsUFA as a relatively new program. Although in its 9th year now, BsUFA facilitated the approval of 35 biosimilar products to date. So where are we now with the BsUFA III reauthorization? This slide demonstrates the reauthorization timeline. As you can see, it starts with a public announcement, then FDA industry negotiations, clearance process and finalized package, then a public meeting and a congressional briefing. And now We are currently awaiting congressional consideration and passage of the BsUFA III reauthorization. This reauthorization should occur before September 30th, 2022. So, as we move on and discuss the enhancements that were highlighted in the BsUFA III commitment letter, just remember that this package has not been passed by Congress at this time. This slide represents some of the highlights for the enhancement areas in the BsUFA III commitment letter. During this presentation, the goal is to focus on some of the new enhancement areas and changes, which include new supplement types, enhanced communication for meeting management, implementing best practices, new URRA and human factor review timelines, enhanced communications for inspections, interchangeable products, and the regulatory science program. Other areas in the BsUFA III commitment letter refer to finance, hiring and retention, and information technology, but this presentation will not focus on these areas. If you have not had the chance and want more details after this presentation, I recommend that you review the BsUFA III commitment letter on the FDA.gov website. Starting on October 1st, 2022, one of the biggest changes in the BsUFA III commitment letter is the addition of new biosimilar supplements. These supplements will include new faster timelines associated with safety labeling updates and labeling updates to add or remove an indication where FDA does not need to review efficacy data. And depending on the content of the supplement, changes, as you can see from a time standpoint, can be as early as a 3-month review all the way to a 10-month review from receipt date. There are 5 new biosimilar supplements, categories A through F. These supplements are applicable to a licensed, biosimilar, or interchangeable product. For Category A, these products seek to update the labeling with regards to safety information that has been updated in the reference product labeling and is applicable to one or more indications. For Category B, these supplements are seeking licensure for an additional indication when the submission does not include new datasets, provided that it does not seek a new route of administration, dosage form, dosage strength, formulation, or presentation, and if the supplement is subject to Section 505BA of the FD&C Act, the supplement contains an up-to-date, agreed-upon initial pediatric study plan. For Category C, these supplements seek to remove an approved indication for a licensed biosimilar or interchangeable product. For Category D, these supplements are seeking licensure for an additional indication when the submission contains new data sets other than efficacy data to support a supplement seeking an initial determination of interchangeability, or analytical in vitro data obtained by use of physical, chemical, and/or biological functional assays, or does not contain new data sets other than analytical in vitro data, but is subject to 505BA of the FD&C Act, and the supplement does not contain an up-to-date agreed IPSP. Category E, these supplements are seeking additional indications for a licensed biosimilar or interchangeable product and do contain efficacy data sets. And last, we have Category F, which these supplements are seeking an initial determination of interchangeability. As you can see, moving from Category A through Category F, there are different requirements for each supplement, which in turn, you'll see on the next slide, affects the review time associated with each supplement. As you can see from this slide, for Category A, we have a 3-month review clock. For Categories B and C, it's a 4-month review clock. Category D, 6 months. Categories E and F, it's a 10-month review clock. And the only review time frame difference is for the resubmission for E and F, which is 6 months at that point. Additionally, noted in the slide, the new supplements will be affected, as mentioned before, as of October 1st, 2022. And you can see the performance goals as indicated in the commitment letter start in fiscal year 2023, moving through fiscal year 2027. In addition to the new categories, FDA will be issuing either a guidance or map on classifying the supplements, and either the draft guidance for public comment or the map will be published no later than fiscal year 2023. Next, I would like to talk about meeting management and 4 changes that will be enhanced in BsUFA III and be in effect starting on October 1st, 2022. The next 2 slides are highlighting the changes, but would recommend that you refer to the BsUFA III commitment letter for additional information on these meeting commitments. First change is to the Biosimilar Initial Advisory Meeting, BIA. Under BsUFA III, preliminary comparative analytical data is not required for the meeting request. These meetings are an initial assessment limited to a general discussion regarding whether licensure under the 351(k) pathway may be feasible for a particular product, and only 1 BIA meeting may be granted per program. Additional requirements for this meeting are outlined in the commitment letter. Next is the change to the BsUFA II Type 2 meeting. Now there is a Type 2A and 2B meeting as part of BsUFA III. The new BPD meeting Type 2A is focused on a narrow set of issues requiring input from no more than 3 disciplines or review divisions. To request a Type 2A meeting, a sponsor must first have had a BIA or other BPD meeting with the agency. The new meeting type reduces the meeting scheduled or written response time from 90 to 60 calendar days compared to the traditional Type 2 meeting under BsUFA II. BsUFA III maintains the traditional Type 2 meeting, but is now called a Type 2B meeting. This slide represents FDA's response time in calendar days for the new meeting types. The response time for 2A and 2B meeting are at 21 calendar days, which was similar to a Type 2 meeting under BsUFA II. On this slide, it indicates the time frame for FDA to schedule the meeting following receipt of a formal request, or in the case of a written response for BIA and BPD Type 2A and 2B meetings, the time frame to send the response. Highlighted in yellow is the change for the BPD Type 2A meetings. And as mentioned before, this is now 60 calendar days from receiving the meeting request and background package. And as you may see for the BPD Type 4 meeting, there is a change related to the background package, but we'll get to this on the next slide. For BPD Type 4 meetings, a change as part of BsUFA III is that the meeting package does not have to be submitted with the meeting request and now can be submitted 14 days after FDA receives the written meeting request. For a BIA or BPD Type 1, 2A, 2B, or 3, the meeting package must be submitted with the written request. Another change to meeting management, BsUFA III introduces a follow-up opportunity for all meeting types. This opportunity allows for a sponsor to submit clarifying questions to ensure they understand FDA's feedback. This request must be submitted in writing within 20 calendar days following receipt of the meeting minutes or a WRO. And if the question meets the criteria, FDA will issue a response in writing within 20 calendar days. Once again, only questions of a clarifying nature will be permitted, such as confirming something in the meeting minutes. Additionally, like new supplements, FDA will be updating the formal meetings between the FDA, sponsors, or applicants of BsUFA products by fiscal year 2023. As part of BsUFA III, FDA will be looking at lessons learned during BsUFA III in the final assessment of the program and is committed to updating relevant guidances, maps, and SOPs to reflect best practices in communication during the application review. As it relates to the development of biosimilar biological device combination products regulated by CDR and CBER, BsUFA III commitments address new procedures and review timelines for use-related risk analysis and human factor validation study protocols. When a sponsor submits a protocol for review, within 60 days of agency receipt of the protocol and specific questions, the agency will provide a written response to the sponsor. And on or before the end of fiscal year 2024, FDA will publish new draft or revised guidance for review staff and industry describing considerations related to biosimilar biologic device combination products. FDA and industry believe in enhanced communications between review teams and industry on certain pre-license inspections can facilitate an efficient application review process. When FDA determines for an application, not including supplements, that it is necessary to conduct a pre-license inspection at times when the product identified in the application is being manufactured, FDA's goal is to communicate its intent to inspect a manufacturing facility at least 60 days in advance of the pre-license inspection and no later than mid-cycle. Note, FDA reserves the right to conduct inspections at any time during the review cycle, whether or not they've communicated to the facility the intent to inspect. On or before September 30th, 2023, FDA will issue a draft guidance on the use of alternate tools to assess manufacturing facilities named in pending applications. And as mentioned earlier, the guidance will incorporate best practices, including those in existing published documents and from use of such tools in the past year or so. The next two slides are going to focus on efforts to further advance the development of interchangeable biosimilar products, which includes leveraging the regulatory science program to advance product development, assist in regulatory decision-making, and support guidance development. These efforts will include stakeholder engagement, which includes a scientific workshop on the development of interchangeable products to help identify future needs. This workshop will occur on or before October 31st, 2025. After the workshop, FDA will issue a draft and final strategy document that outlines the specific actions the agency will take to facilitate the development of interchangeable biosimilar biological products. As part of BsUFA III, this slide highlights the 4 guidances that will be developed to support interchangeable products. First is the guidance describing considerations for developing presentation, container closure systems, and device constituent parts for proposed interchangeable products. A draft guidance will be published on or before September 30th, 2025. Next is a labeling guidance for interchangeable products. This draft guidance will be published on or before September 30th, 2023. And the last 2 draft guidances will be published on or before September 30th, 2024. They are a guidance on promotional labeling and advertising, and last, a guidance on the nature and type of information for different reporting categories a sponsor should provide to support post-approval manufacturing changes to approved biosimilar and interchangeable biological products. Let's talk about regulatory science. FDA is committed to enhancing regulatory decision-making and facilitating science-based recommendations in an area foundational to biosimilar development. Starting in fiscal year 2023, FDA will pilot a regulatory science program broadly applicable to facilitating biosimilar and interchangeable biological product development with project goals not specific to a product or product class. The pilot program will focus on 2 demonstration projects. First, advancing the development of interchangeable products. And second, improving the efficiency of biosimilar product development. For advancing the development of interchangeable products, this demonstration project will investigate and evaluate the data and information, including real-world evidence, needed to meet the safety standards for determining interchangeability. This can include investigating and evaluating informative, scientifically appropriate methodologies to assess the potential impact of differences between proposed interchangeable biosimilar and reference product presentation and container closure systems, and methodologies to predict immunogenicity by advancing the knowledge of analytical, pharmacological, clinical correlations as it relates to interchangeability. For the second project, improving the efficiency of biosimilar product development, this will focus on research to advance the efficiency of biosimilar product development, enhance regulatory decision-making based on the latest scientific knowledge, and advance the use of innovative scientific methodologies and experience with biosimilars. This project will review and evaluate opportunities for streamlining and targeting biosimilar product development. Additionally, there will be a stakeholder engagement as part of the program. This includes a public meeting to be held on or before October 31st, 2025. Additionally, this is to review progress and solicit input on future priorities and issuing an interim report on project progress in advance of the meeting. On or before September 30th, 2027, a final summary report of outcomes from the pilot program will be posted on FDA's website. The program deliverables includes a publication of a comprehensive strategy document within 12 months of completing the projects. This strategy document will be distinct from the final summary report of the pilot program. Once again, today's presentation was covering highlights of the BsUFA III commitment letter. If you'd like more details about the commitments for those areas that were covered today and were not covered today, I highly recommend that you go to the FDA.gov website and view the BsUFA III fiscal year 2023 to 2027 commitment letter for more information. Once again, this will provide additional details as it relates to the BsUFA III commitments for this upcoming fiscal year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all for those excellent presentations. We will now hold our panel discussions. And it looks like we have already had quite a few questions come in already. So I am going to start with Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim, after RTOR is granted, do we still need to submit an official rolling review request, or is that implied when RTOR is granted?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Sounds like you can. So after RTOR is granted, you don't have to officially submit a rolling review request because one, RTOR is different than rolling review, and two, because they're on different pathways. Once the RTOR is granted, it's separate from it's separate from rolling review, and you just have to basically get your RTOR granted in order for that process to start.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Are there plans to implement RTOR or Orbis-like aspects to indications besides oncology?
So I'll just take Orbis first. Obviously, the agency across the three centers, they know about Orbis. We've given presentations to the three centers, but as of right now, I've not heard any plans to operate Orbis outside of oncology. For RTOR, I know that STAR, I forgot what that actually stands for, but that has been negotiated under the latest PDUFA negotiation agreements. And STAR actually came from RTOR. If you take a look at it, it has the same concept, the same principles from RTOR. So that is actually planned to be implemented under PDUFA. But again, we did choose to keep RTOR separate from STAR. There's some variations between STAR and RTOR, but STAR is, in a sense, kind of like RTOR, and that will be implemented under PDUFA.
Thank you. And we have one more question for you to start with. Do the different agencies ask their own questions related to the application during the review, or are they consolidated questions from the agency?
Yeah, regarding Orbis, when we're working with other regulatory agencies, we call them Orbis partners. The separate agencies, be it Health Canada or Switzerland or whatnot, they ask their own questions regarding the applications because the applications are submitted to their agency. So they do their own independent review, just like we do, and they ask their own independent questions to the sponsors, just like we do.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. The next three questions will be directed at Dr. Rhonda Hearns-Stewart. The first question is, will IAMA replace normal MA assessment?
Hi, yes, so the integrated assessment and marketing applications, currently the scope includes new molecular entities, original BLAs, and select efficacy supplements that include data for a new population and or new indication. However, we are expanding the scope to include other types of marketing applications over time.
Thank you. Your second question, is IAMA based on AAID?
Integrated assessment and marketing applications is not based on the assessment aid.
And does the new integrated assessment process apply to supplements to an NDA as well?
Indication and or population.
Could you repeat that, please? I think it got cut off.
Sure. Currently, the scope for the integrated assessment of marketing applications does include some select efficacy supplements, those efficacy supplements that have data for a new indication or a new population. Those are included in the integrated assessment of marketing applications scope at this time.
Thank you. Let's move on to a few questions for Commander Olin. Commander Olin, you mentioned that there are 5 new supplements. Is this correct? Did you mean 6?
Yes, just to clarify, there are 6 new supplements, with E and F being needing clinical data. So just a quick correction, it is.
Thank you. Second question for you. How will research for the pilot or demonstration project be obtained? Will sponsors be involved, or will this research be solely carried out by FDA?
As mentioned, there will be stakeholder engagement, and as part of their science program, FDA did announce a funding opportunity in March of this past year, but it has closed as of May 9th, and FDA is processing those proposals. But with a quick note that although we did receive the proposals in advance to the FY 2023, which is the program start date, these are subject to funding and reauthorization of BsUFA.
Thank you, Commander Olin. One more question for you right now. What are the new timelines for labeling supplements, and how does that compare to BsUFA II?
So as mentioned, the new timelines are ranging from 3 months to 10 months. They are outlined in the commitment letter, but the other thing just to note is manufacturing supplements will remain the same as in BsUFA II, where they're a 4 or 6 month review clock.
Thank you. Let's circle back with Dr. Kim for 3 more questions. Dr. Kim, will FDA reject an assessment aid for an application that is not under Orbis?
So FDA will not reject an assessment aid, an application with an assessment aid that is not under Orbis, because these are actually 2 separate programs. So you don't necessarily have to be under Orbis in order to do the assessment aid. Actually, you don't have to be under Orbis at all to use the assessment aid. However, for Orbis, we do encourage the use of an assessment aid because Orbis is actually a pretty complicated process. If you can imagine working with several different regulators on a drug approval and a review, the assessment aid makes the process of Orbis a little bit more coordinated and easier.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Can you comment on whether Project Orbis is likely to increase frequency of joint FDA EMA GCP inspections?
So I would have to say that it likely isn't, because we don't actually conduct Project Orbis with EMA, and the reason is that the EMA has very kind of more different and more complex review timing than the FDA and other countries. For instance, when they send a list of questions to applicants regarding their application, technically the review clock stops, and that doesn't happen with FDA or other countries, or some of the countries, I would say rather, that participate in Orbis. So we don't have EMA as our Orbis, one of our Orbis partners, and because of that, I would say that it would not increase joint inspections for the EMA.
Thank you for that. One more for you, Dr. Kim. Could you please share if there are plans to implement any of the RTOR or Orbis aspects to programs for indications besides oncology.
Again, I think I answered that question previously, but RTOR is going to be implemented under PDUFA. It's not going to be called RTOR. It's going to be called STAR, and I forgot what that stands for, but essentially the concepts are the same. They borrow the concepts from RTOR. Orbis, I've not heard that will be rolled out into other therapeutic areas other than oncology. I guess one last thing is the assessment aid. That I've seen a lot of interest coming from other parts of the agency about the assessment aid. However, I don't know if it's going to be rolled out to other parts of the agency. I do know that the UNI-review, or the multidisciplinary review that was originated in the OCE, that was ruled out in another under another name, and that was what Dr. Hearns-Stewart talked about, the integrated assessment of marketing applications. So basically, what we call the UNI-review, or the multidisciplinary review in the OCE, the foundations of that were used to create the integrated assessment of marketing applications. So OCE had the UNI-review and the multidisciplinary review, and we provided that review template to CDR OND, and they created the integrated assessment of marketing applications. So there are programs that have been originated in the OCE that have been used by other centers, but they may be named a different name, and they may have slightly different tweaks to the program depending on what they had developed as a group.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for that detailed response. Let's move on to 3 questions for Dr. Hearns-Stewart. So the first question is there a specific section that captures patient voice as appropriate in the IRT?
Yes. Patient voice is captured throughout the interdisciplinary assessment section of the integrated review template, part 2 of the document, as well as the patient experience data section as well.
Thank you. And is IRT an FDA internal document during IAMA? When, or is it possible for the information to be available to the sponsor?
So the integrated review template, it's just a template, just like a discipline-specific template or a unit review template or other templates that are used within the agency across disciplines. So it's just what we use to guide the writing of the integrated review document. But the integrated review document does become public and is published on Drugs at FDA website once the drug product is approved.
Great, thank you. And one more question for you in this round, Dr. Hearns-Stewart. Is IAMA only for oncology?
No, the integrated assessment of marketing applications is not only for oncology. It is for use for across all drug therapeutic areas and divisions within the Office of New Drugs at the FDA.
Thank you. Let's move on back to Commander Olin. Commander Olin, how is the amount of BsUFA and the other UFAs calculated or determined?
For that question, I'd have to refer you to the user fee program. So if you go on fda.gov and look up user fee amendment, biosimilar user fee amendments, that will have more information, and I would direct that question to the user fee group.
Thank you. A second question for you, Commander Olin. What other changes to meeting management are occurring in BsUFA III?
Most of the, as mentioned in the presentation, most of the major changes in BsUFA III have been highlighted. Once again, the meeting and timeline criteria will remain the same as BsUFA II, and most of this information is detailed in the BsUFA III commitment letter.
Thank you. And one more question for you, Commander Olin. What is the first interchangeability biosimilar product guidance that will be published?
The first guidance, as mentioned again, is the labeling guidance for interchangeability, and the draft guidance should be on September 30th, on or before September 30th, 2023. Just once again, I know I may have repeated this multiple times, but the commitment letter does have a lot more detailed information about when proposed draft guidances are going to be published, and the associated final guidance will be published also. So refer back to the commitment letter is the best answer I have moving forward in regards to highlighting timelines for guidances.
Thank you, Commander Olin. That was helpful. Let's circle back to Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim, how has the RTOR made an impact in oncology drug approvals?
I think that RTOR has a positive impact on the drug approvals within oncology. If you notice from my presentation, roughly the time from RTOR submission to the action date or the approval date has been pretty much 3.3 months. So it's decreased the review time from submission to approval. However, when we do make it clear on our RTOR website within the OCE that just because you are in RTOR does not guarantee an approval, and it does not guarantee a faster review time. However, as it lands, when we take a look at the data, there is a faster review time that had been associated with the applications in RTOR. So I think the impact is positive. Industry seems to like the RTOR program. Patients like it from the purview that they get their drugs approved faster, and in getting their drugs approved faster, they have faster access or earlier access to their medications than they normally would.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Can you talk about what has been the success of using the assessment aid within oncology?
I think the success of using the assessment aid, it not only benefits the reviewers, but I do think it benefits the applicants as well. First, I'll just tell you how it benefits the applicants as far as I'm concerned is, I think it allows the applicant to focus on providing information to FDA that focuses the applicant as well. So they kind of know, based on our template, what we're looking for and what we want responses for. Likewise, for the FDA, it's beneficial as well because it kind of streamlines all of the information, the data, the applicant's assessment into one document. I do think to a certain extent, even though we don't allow the applicant to edit the assessment aid once they submit it, to a certain degree, I do think it's somewhat more collaborative because we're working on one document, and that one document is posted for patient groups, for other applicants, or even FDA to see. So you have all in one document. You have the applicant's data, you have their assessment of their data, and then you have FDA's assessment all in one document. So I think it's positive for many different groups.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Can you also comment on what benefits and challenges have arisen with Project Orbis?
Yeah, so the benefits I think are interesting. What Orbis does is, because in general, for the most part, if an Orbis country participates in this program and they end up approving the drug, and most times that's the case, I think there's about 6-7 Orbis countries, that kind of flattens out, or it gives an even level of the standard of care within each country. Because what had happened previous to Project Orbis is that we had noticed for many years, because we have monthly TCONs with other regulators, that for the most part, marketing applications were getting submitted to FDA years in advance to other countries. And that was fine. We obviously we're used to that system. However, our center director thought that it would be good, for other countries to also get these marketing applications for review as well. For one, to provide access to patients in those countries, and then two, kind of an unintentional but also a positive benefit of this is that it would kind of level out the standard of care for cancer drug treatment in those countries as well. So, once a drug is approved, for the most part, if the drug is a pretty, I guess you would say a good drug for oncologists to use and on patients in oncology to use, that will become the standard of care. But that only will become the standard of care in general if it's an approved drug. So I think it levels off the playing field if a drug is approved in other countries. So that's a benefit. Some of the challenges of Orbis are that working with 5-6 different regulators at the same time, and also the sponsor working with these regulators at the same time, it can be challenging. But at the same time, OCE, we coordinate these efforts, so it's a little bit easier than working in silos. So that's one nice thing. But as you can imagine, working with different regulators at the same time, it can pose a lot of challenges. But at the same time, from an applicant's point of view, they may get a drug approval from 4, 5, 6 different regulators at the same time. So I'm sure they're, that benefits them too.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Let's move on to a few questions for Dr. Hearns-Stewart now. Dr. Hearns-Stewart, will the IA review be posted on the FDA website so that information can be seen publicly?
Yes, for all approved drug products for which the integrated assessment of marketing applications was used, those integrated reviews will be published on the Drugs at FDA website upon approval.
Okay, great. Another question for you, Dr. Hearns-Stewart. What do reviewers think of the integrated assessment of marketing applications?
Feedback, we obtained feedback since we started this in the form of surveys and focus groups and listening sessions. And that feedback overall indicates that most reviewers really like the issue-focused approach and the enhanced communication amongst the review teams.
Okay, thank you. One more question for you, Dr. Hearns-Stewart. How many marketing applications have used the new integrated assessment of marketing applications process?
To date, approximately 60 marketing application reviews have been completed using the integrated assessment of marketing applications. There are currently approximately 15 ongoing marketing applications for which the integrated assessment of marketing applications is being used.
Thank you. Let's move on to 3 questions for Commander Olin. Commander Olin, small business is defined as $1 million to above $40 million. With the amount of BsUFA into millions with the clinical study review, do you think that the amount of BsUFA is affordable to small businesses?
So the best way I can answer that question is that biological products are very expensive, and that's why BsUFA is aiming to increase the efficiency to hopefully reduce some of these development costs. In BsUFA III, the Reg Science program will also help fund studies to potentially decrease the development costs. And as we gain experience with biosimilars and have more robust scientific data, hopefully this will back and streamline the development to lower some of the costs.
Thank you, Commander Olin. Another question for you. If the sponsor plans to submit a Type 4 meeting before October 2022, should they follow the old guidance, submitting the request and package together, or the new guidance, submitting the request followed by the package within 14 calendar days?
Up until September 30th, before BsUFA III is first off has to be reauthorized and goes into effect on October 1st, they would follow the old BsUFA II commitments and guidance. So yes, you would have to submit the meeting package with the meeting.
Thank you. One more question for you. When will the regulatory science program start?
Once again, the regulatory science program, as I think mentioned with a previous question, is going to start in FY 2023, and we have already asked for proposals, and they were submitted to the FDA for review. But once again, it's based on reauthorization of BsUFA.
Thank you, Commander Olin. Dr. Kim, let's move back to you. How is OOD and OCE related when it comes to the review of oncology applications?
That's such a good question because oftentimes many people get confused about the relationship of OOD to OCE in general. I guess as it relates to marketing applications, the OOD reviews everything. They review IND applications, they review marketing applications, including NDAs, BLAs, and supplements. But the OCE's role in reviewing marketing applications is that we get involved if it's an application under an expedited program, and that's at the IND level as well as the BLA or NDA level. So, if something is under breakthrough, something is going to be reviewed under accelerated approval, priority review. That is when the OCE will essentially assign a clinical reviewer, as well as it may also get a signatory authority for the clinical portion of the application within the OCE. So for the most part, the OCE gets involved in the review of a marketing application if there is a expedited program that is involved. We may also get asked to review something if one of the centers requests OCE to be involved.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim, how does one inform FDA that a sponsor is interested in Orbis?
This can happen through many different levels, but typically, this happens either through meetings and discussion with an applicant, or the applicant could submit something officially to an NDA or BLA or IND requesting for our Orbis participation, or via email, which also technically emails should be submitted officially to the IND, NDA, or BLA submission. So it happens through multiple routes and normal routes, but in general, it can happen in meetings. It can happen through just a submission to the IND or marketing application.
Okay, and next we have a multi-part question. How have FDA Oncology and OCE reviews evolved over time, and why did OCE create these review programs?
So, I think OCE, because, one of our charges is to be an innovative center, and we're just kind of, that's our culture. The reviews have evolved in that initially we kind of followed the rest of what the rest of the agency was doing, but we got a little bit more innovative or creative. I would just say more creative in our reviews. First with the UNA review, what happened there is that previous to the UNA review, pretty much all the reviewers were just doing their own reviews, just kind of the traditional way. Non-clinical was separate from clinical, was separate from stats, was separate from all the other disciplines. However, with the UNA review, that was basically the first time the agency combined reviews with 4 different disciplines. So, the unit review was the first time that we combined at least clinical stats, non-clinical, and I think it was clin-pharm. It was not easy to do that because we had to have multiple meetings to even just get to that state. So that was the first time the agency did something like that. We progressed to the multidisciplinary reviewer. And then we also provided our templates and our reasoning to CDR OND, and they adopted those principles. And now you have the integrated assessment of marketing applications. Since then, we have now started, and I'm talking about we, as in the OCE, we've started the assessment aid. And not only do we have clinical, non-clinical, and many other disciplines within the assessment aid, but now we have the sponsor actually participating in these, working on these templates too. So it's been an evolvement over time, but I think it's been a good one, and it's been beneficial for everybody. I'm sorry, what was your last part of your question?
It was, why did the OCE create these review programs? And then actually there's some more parts. How have industry and patient groups reacted to these programs? And have any of these programs been used by other parts of the agency?
Okay. Oh, well, that's a lot of questions there. So anyways, so the OCE created these programs for a lot of different reasons. But one of the reasons is that we just thought it made sense. I think if you took a look at the traditional way of writing reviews, some of these reviews, and I'm talking for just one discipline, like a clinical discipline or a non-clinical discipline, they could have been, 400 pages long. And it's hard to write these, but also it's hard for people to read these once they're posted on Drugs at FDA. So we decided to focus our assessment on certain topics, ones that we pretty much know what we would be looking for, and we methodically went through these topics and questions with each review discipline. So we did this, because it kind of made sense. We just kind of thought that the old way of doing reviews was antiquated. It had not changed in quite some time. And then, what we were hoping is to streamline these reviews to get to the more salient points quicker. And then in streamlining these reviews, we would hope to essentially expedite the review. And when I say expedite within oncology, I mean that, we traditionally do, like for some products that are kind of game changers or are meaningful products to cancer patients, we try to expedite the review to the extent that we can without compromising any quality of the review. And to that extent, we may have multiple reviewers in the same discipline working on that review to get the drugs out to patients earlier. So that's pretty much why we did that. We did it to streamline the review as well as to get the drug out to the patient as quickly as we can without compromising any quality. As far as when any of these programs will they be rolled out to other parts of the agency? Again, I think I did address this. RTOR is pretty much being rolled out under the STAR program under PDUFA, the latest PDUFA negotiations. Assessment aid, I'm not sure if that will be rolled out, but essentially that version, it does. If it were to be rolled out, that would have to be undertaken with discussions with other centers. But the backbone of that assessment aid is the unit review, the multidisciplinary review, and now the integrated assessment. It just, the integrated assessment does not have the sponsor's data or assessment. So that's that might be what is missing between the IAMA and the assessment aid. Project Orbis, I don't know actually if that will be rolled out to other parts of the centers because it is a complicated process. So I haven't heard anything about that.
Thank you so much for those detailed answers, Dr. Kim. Let's move on to Dr. Hearns-Stewart. First question, can a sponsor request to have its MAA reviewed under IAMA or is it a division decision?
Yes, at this time, it is a division decision whether to use the integrated assessment of marketing applications for all in-scope applications. However, we do anticipate that in the near future, we will be using the integrated assessment of marketing applications for all NMEs and original BLAs.
Thank you. Another question for you. Did you say 60 applications thus far have used the IAMA, or was it 16?
Yes, it was 60, 60.
Okay.
Have used
Thank you
the
for
integrated
clarifying.
assessment of marketing applications. You're welcome.
Thank you. Another question for you. Why isn't the integrated review being used in all review divisions?
Well, our approach to use of the integrated review and introduction of the integrated assessment of marketing applications within O&D, it was a phased approach. And so we are currently nearing the end of the last phases of this approach. So we have not yet onboarded and trained all of the divisions yet. We still have some left to go. But over time, we will get to all divisions, and all divisions will be utilizing the integrated assessment of marketing applications.
Thank you. Let's do one more question for you. What has it been like having a clinical data scientist and medical editor participate in the review of marketing applications?
Well, the reviewers really like the additional support provided by both the clinical data scientists and the medical editor staff. However, the role of medical editor is not new to the Office of New Drugs. However, both roles have definitely enhanced the consistency and the quality of our review documentation. They provide services that include, and definitely not limited to, safety analytics support, safety data verification, standard tables and figures, formatting, editing, things like hyperlinks and bookmarks, those things that reviewers would spend a lot of additional time on. And now that time has been repurposed to our review staff to give them more time for the critical thinking that they've requested. So it's been very helpful.
Thank you for responding to those. Let's move to Commander Olin. Commander Olin, we have one question for you. Are the changes for meeting management meant to mirror the meeting management for PDUFA?
So the changes in meeting management are meant to help make the process more efficient. So there may be some similarities between PDUFA and BsUFA, such as the follow-up opportunity.
Thank you. It looks like we have a question that just came in for Dr. Kim. For Project Orbis, do the different regulators approach FDA or the other way around? I would also like to know if other regulators would join in the future.
So I think for the most part, since one of the reasons why we started this program is that most of the applications were being submitted to FDA first by many years. I think for the most part, if an applicant is wanting to participate in Orbis, they've been coming to FDA directly, and then they may go to other regulators afterwards, just because of the historical nature of marketing applications being submitted to FDA first. Regarding other countries that might be able to participate in the future, I think that FDA would be open to that. However, there's certain things that need to take place before another country participates in Project Orbis. And one of those things is a big, kind of a big deal, is that they do have to have a memorandum of understanding with FDA, as well as the other Project Orbis countries. So in order for them to participate in Project Orbis, they do have to have that memorandum of understanding.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Let's move on to Dr. Hearns-Stewart for a couple more questions. Dr. Hearns-Stewart, does the final review come in multiple documents or will it be unified into one document?
It will be just one document, even though this is a three-part document, the first part being your executive summary, the second part being your interdisciplinary assessment, and the third part being the additional analyses and information section. It is still just one document composed of three parts, but it's just one unified document.
Thank you. And I think that's all the time we have today for questions. Thank you for the panelists and presenters for the morning session. Those were some excellent questions and responses. So we'll now go into